Hello, what's going on, guys? Welcome to the channel. It's been a while since I created a new tutorial, but I'm back again. So today we're going to focus on .NET framework or C#. So we're going to look at how we can access Microsoft 365 resources using Microsoft Graph API with using .NET framework. Okay, so we're going to focus on sending an email using .NET Framework with Microsoft Graph API. So the same concept that you're going to learn today, you're going to apply to any other custom projects that you might have within Microsoft's Graph API using .NET Framework. For example, if you want to be able to access, to get the access token, you want to be able to retrieve all users, you want to be able to read mailboxes using .NET Framework with Microsoft Graph API, you're going to use this high-level understanding of what we're going to do today and apply it to those custom projects. Okay, so the first thing that you need to do to be able to run a .NET framework within your system is to install the .NET framework SDK. So for me, I'm using .NET SDK version 7, 64-bit because my system is 64. So for you to download that SDK, just open a new tab here, and then I'm going to type in .NET Core. It's there. .NET Core SDK. So you'll come to this website, Microsoft website. You can see that it starts with .NET.microsoft.com, and then from here you can download the version that meets your requirement. So we have .NET 6.0. For my case, I just went with 7.0, 64-bit for Windows, since I'm using Windows. Okay, so the text editor that I'm going to use, it's the VS Code, Visual Studio Code. So you need to also download Visual Studio Code and install it in your system. Okay, so once you do that, we can proceed. I'm not going to show you how we can go about downloading Visual Studio Code. That's something that you can do from your side. And also downloading the .NET, it's something that you can do. It's just like another application that you download and install it in your system. Okay, so once you get the VS Code text editor installed in your system, and also you have downloaded and installed the SDK within your system, you can just open the whatever file directory that you prefer and create a folder. So within the drive that you specify, you have more than one drive in your machine, you can just go there and create a new folder. For example, I went to desktop and created a new folder named .NET Tut. So once you create the folder, the next thing that you just need to do is you can open it like that. And then from here, you can just type CMD to open command prompt within that current directory where we have that folder. And once you open there, you can just type in .NET new console, just like that. And then what it will do, it will automatically create a project for us, a .NET framework project for us, or C#. And then once it's created, all you just need to do to open the VS Code within your system is just type in code dot, and then enter. And then you can see there, we have program.cs, and also we have the .NET CS project. So this is created automatically for us by that command, the .NET new console. And then we have also a folder there, bin, we have obj. So this will be created automatically for you by that command. So what we're more interested with is the program.cs, because here is where we're going to write our code. Okay. And something else as a prerequisite for this project is, since we're going to interact with Microsoft Graph API, you also need to register an app registration within M365 or Azure AD. So in my Azure AD, that's where this is the tenant that I'm going to use. So here I have registered an application, app_new, and then the only thing that you need from the app registration is the application client ID. This one, we need also the tenant ID, and something else that you also need to provision is the secret for that you're going to use. And something else also is you need to also assign the permission, an API permission. So since we're going to send an email, in this tutorial, you need to assign your app registration mail.send permission. So as you can see, this is what we need, mail.send. So if I can go to Microsoft website here, documentation, that is, you can see for us to be users, like we have colon there, send mail, we need to assign our application. Within application, we need to assign mail.send. So I also have another video within my channel that demonstrates how you can create or how to create an app registration and assign any permission that you need for you to be able to access the respective resource within Azure AD or M365. So once you create your app registration, you're going to grab the application client ID, the secret, and also the tenant ID. So if I can just open the VS Code where we've created our project. So we have program.cs. We can test this one to see if it works, actually. So to test it, you just need to launch terminal. You can just click terminal, the terminal tab in VS Code, and choose new terminal there. And here I'm going to just type .NET space run. And then it's going to execute. And then there we go. We have a low world. So whatever we have here, this is our starting point. So we can see that our project is working. So now we're going to jump into now the our main focus, which is now to interact with Microsoft Graph API. So the first thing that we're going to do is we need to import our module. So I'm from Python side, so I'm not that much into .NET framework, but I understand it since I usually interact with it when working with Microsoft Graph API projects that I have, but I'm not a core .NET framework developer, so I might like confuse you with my wordings, okay? So we're going to import, so you can just remove everything there. And to begin with, I'm just going to say using, so here's whatever we're going to use within our project. So like in Python, we usually import, like if you want to use the OS module, you just say import OS. So in .NET framework, they usually say, you start with saying using, and then the name of whatever package or module that you're going to interact with within your code. So using system dot collections. Sorry, I'm not going to use dot collections. I'm going to use dot net, and then there we have dot http dot headers. I can just add semicolon there. So next is using system, sorry, dot text, semicolon there, and then we have using system dot text.json. So these are built-in modules within .NET framework. So we're going to, for now, we're going to import those ones. So this is what we're going to interact with within our code. So the next is to create the base of our project, which is now the program class. So in .NET, they rely more on class. It's like Java. So the first thing is to create a class, which is the base of our program, and going to be class program. Just like that. Okay. Next, we're going to initialize. It's like initialize now our main class for our project. So we're going to call it main. So static async task main. Then we have string, which is an empty array, I believe. And then intercepts adds. I don't know why it's throwing that error, or is we need space here. We have static async task main. Semicolon there. Okay, so let me just .NET /build. We see what is going to happen. You see if that error is going to go away. So we have an error there. Identify. Okay, so I added like that comma there. So it's the one which is called bringing all those errors. So this one now we can ignore it. It's just a simple one. It's not an error. So I just wanted that to go away. So we are good. So to proceed next, now here we need, the first thing that we're going to do is to define app registration details, and then now we write the code for exporting the access token. Okay, so since I have this in a notepad, in your case you can just copy it in a notepad, provision, create a string client ID, so that will host the application client ID, and then another variable client secret to store the secret, and then we have the tenant ID, which is also going to store the tenant ID. So I'm just going to copy that. I had that in a txt file, so I'm just going to paste it there, just like that. Let me see if this one tab. Okay, good to go. So just like that. Okay, so I can just add a comment here just so we can keep our code clean. So app registration, so it's going to be Azure app registration info, just like that. So next, we're going to create an HTTP client to make requests for now to make requests to the Graph API to get the access token. So we need an HTTP client object. So if I can just add a comment there and say create an HTTP client. So here we're going to say using into brackets HTTP, the thing that we had imported there at the top, and equal initialize it new, and then HTTP client, just like that. I can put this one in the next line like that. Just not skip a line there to keep our code clean. So here we're going to create a new variable var, and then we call it requests content var request content. It's new. Going to call inform URL encoded content. That should be in a bracket. And then new with the square brackets. And then now we have our code there. So that's where our code is going to lie. So I can put just that one in next line to look like that. This one also I need to put it in the next line. Okay, we are getting a couple of errors. Okay, I don't know where that error is coming from. Everything looks good. Up to here, we are good. So HTTP client, client, new HTTP client. I don't know where this error is coming from. So new, an array there. But let me just continue writing to see. Let's do it. Okay, so let's proceed. So new key value pair, key, so key value pair, just like that. It's going to be a string. It's going to host grant. So this is how you define the Graph API details here. So the grant type is the first thing that we're going to define. So this one is usually like static, doesn't change for whichever language that you're using to access Microsoft Graph API. So this one is, I believe it's defined by Microsoft themselves. So client credentials. So grant type is client credentials. So we can see the error is gone. So that's why we need just to proceed. So we can move next. So the next thing, if I can just copy this one so that we don't just keep on typing the same thing over and over. So this new key value pair as well, and it's going to be a string. The type is going to be client ID. So here it's our client ID, just like that. And then here we have our client ID there at the top. So the variable that is hosting client ID, we're going just to pass it there. And you can see that that yellow thing, it's gone now. So next, it's going to be client secret. Here we're just going to remove the client credential and pass in the client secret variable there. Next is going to be the scope. So the key value pair grant type. So this one is going to be scope. What will be scoping when accessing Microsoft Graph API. So here we're just going to pass in the URL. So it is usually https colon graph dot microsoft.com and it's slash dot default, just like that. So that is the HTTP client, and we have defined it using the Azure app registration, ready to make the request to the Graph API. So next, we're going to just throwing in there a second. So there's something else I also forgot here on the app registration info. So we're supposed to type in the endpoint for getting the access token. So it is also a string. So token endpoint, I'm going to call it token endpoint, and then this is a URL. So I'm going to start with dollar character there. So the dollar character, just the way in Python, we can use the F string to be able to add variables within a string or concatenate string with the variables in Python. So in .NET, they usually use the dollar the dollar character. So I'm going to define the URL. So it's HTTPS. So that is the endpoint to get the access token. Login dot Microsoft. So this one is static. You just need to type it the way it is, and it's just automatic. Will replace the tenant ID within the URL. So Microsoft online.com. And then we're going to pass in now our tenant ID variable there. Tenant ID like that. Next is out or out 2 slash version. We're going to use 2.0 and then slash token. And then now semicolon there. Yeah, so that is the endpoint that we're going to call to get the access token. So here we have our HTTP client to get the access token. So let's proceed next, which is now to now get the access token, now retrieving the access token. So down there, you can just proceed and I can add a comment there, retrieve access token. Okay, the first thing that we're going to define is HTTP. Sorry, it's supposed to be HTTP response message. HTTP response message. Sorry. HTTP response message. Read response. Go to await client. So now the HTTP client that we defined there, now we're going to use it. So await client dot post, the post request. Then you're going to pass in token endpoint and the request content, which is here, the one that we defined there. So request content like that. You add a semicolon there. Next, string a variable to host now the response. So response content. I'm just going to use the same variable. Response dot content dot read async read a string. So read a string async. That is a function. So request content. Sorry, it's not to request content, but response content, just like that. Next is variable to host now the token response. So we're going just to call it token response. So token response calling JSON serializer dot deserialize JSON element. Going to pass in our response content there. Don't forget the semicolon. Await JSON serializer dot serialize JSON element. Then you have a colon there. I think I made a mistake. It's not supposed to be await for the response, since we are just getting the content and deserializing it. So here I'm going to create another variable of string to store now the access token equal to token, token response, whatever now we have got from the endpoint or from the request. So token response dot get property. So we're only interested to get the access token from that deserialized JSON data. So it's access token, and we're only going to get the string, get string, like that is the function, just like that. So string access token. So the access token is a variable to host the actual access token. And then we have the token response here, the one that we have already received, and deserialize it. And then we're going to grab only the access token property. Okay, so next we can do is just to test to see if it works. We can do a console, supposed to be console.log or dot write line, sorry. Console.write line, and from there we can pass in the access token, just like that. We can put in a semicolon there, and we can run this code to see if we can get a Graph API access token. So you do that, it's just from the terminal.net space run, and then you wait. And there, boom. Although we have a warning in the terminal, but it's no big deal, but we have access token to make any request using the Graph API. So there we have the access token. And that is how simple that you can get access token to access Microsoft Graph API with .NET Framework or C#. Okay, so I'm just going to put a comment here. So next, now we're going to do the actual request to Graph API to be able to send an email. Okay, so I'm going to send an email from an account in M365, which has a mailbox, to an external email address, to a Gmail. So I'm going to send to my personal Gmail account. Okay, so once we have the access token, now we move next, which is now to define the API endpoint to send the email. We define the user account that we're going to use to send the email from. Okay, so the first thing is to create the variable to host the account that we're going to send an email from. So I'm going to call it string mail user. So string mail user, I'm going to use my admin account. So Bernard at Microsoft.com, like that. So if I can just go to my tenant, I have that user. Sorry, I can just go to M365. So this is the account that I'm going to send from. So it has a license and it has a mailbox. If I can just go to mail tab just to show you there. So we have the mailbox settings there. I can also open Outlook. All apps. Outlook. So there we go. So I have a mailbox with that account. So we can proceed next. So that is the account that I'm going to use to send email from. So don't forget to add semicolon there. So moving next is now to define the URL, the endpoint. We call it an endpoint that will now do the magic of sending the email. So it's going to be a string. So send mail endpoint. Just like I said, we use in .NET, we usually use a dollar character to be able to concatenate strings. So HTTPS, going to call in graph.microsoft.com. Slash the version of the API. So I'm going to use that is version 1.0 slash users. And then there we have slash. Now I can pass in the user principal name. So this is the user principal name or the email address for that account. So it's going to be mail user. Just pass in that variable just like that. Next is to pass in send mail and semicolon. So this one is already defined the URL for each, actually for any request or any endpoint that you want to make a request in Microsoft Graph API. Within Microsoft documentation, they already have this. So be it you want to be able to retrieve users. So within Microsoft documentation, you usually get those URLs. It's only that when you have like a complex request that you want to make in Microsoft Graph API, that you need to construct your own custom URL or endpoint to match your requirement. For example, if you want to do your own filtering, stuff like that, that's when now you can be able to construct your own custom endpoint or URL. So if you can come here and see this is from Microsoft documentation, you can see to make a post request for, it's a post request when you're trying to send an email using Graph API. So the content type there, we have application/JSON, and then you can see the endpoint, the way it looks like. So for me, this is to send from the current account that you're using. So instead of just going with me, for me, I just chose to go first to call in all users and then now access that specific user, which is now my account, and then now the send mail. It will work the same. So any resource that you want to access using Graph API, Microsoft usually define for you the endpoint. For example, this is for Drive. So if you're accessing SharePoint or OneDrive, the endpoint will be defined for you there, and then you can make your own personal customization. So as you can see there, we have me/drive. We have for users, specific user, and then you access that drive for that user. Okay. So proceeding next, once we construct the endpoint to send the email, next is to define the message. So the message block or the snippet, we're going to create a snippet that we're going to use to now compose the email. So I'm going to call it var message. And then it's going to be a dictionary. String object. Just like that. So this one we might need to end it with a semicolon so that we throw those errors away. So once we define the message block, next is just like that. So that is static the way it is. And then we begin with can start now. We define our message. It's going to be new dictionary. So a string. So this one is not string. This is string object. Just like that. And then there we can define the subject. So the first thing within the block of the message, just the way we usually do when we are sending an email, we need to define the subject for our message. So subject. So this is going to be tests, email from an office. So I'm going to test email using graph. Yeah, so that's going to be the subject of our email. Next, we're going to define the body. So the body of our email is going to be new dictionary. To be a string. That this one should be on next line, like that one. From here now we can define the content type of our message or the body. So it's going to be content. First thing is the content type. Which is a text. Next, we need to define the content itself of the message. So the body now, so it's content. So I'm going to type in something like, hello, this is a successful message sent by Microsoft Graph API with .NET framework. So let me just wrap this up so that doesn't go overboard, just like that. So that is going to be the body of our message or our email, just like that. Simple stuff. That is the body. So we can move next, which is to now define we need to so separate this one with a comma. So next is going to be the recipient. So we need to define the recipient of our message. So it's going to be another curly brace. Island. And then from here we can define recipient. recipients. I think that is typed correctly. To be a new object. From there, we need to define the new dictionary. So this one we just to be a dictionary, another dictionary of string object. Just like that. So this one we can just follow up the way it is. I'll share the code within my GitHub account so that you can just take a look at it. And also if you need to do your own personal customization, you can do it. So there will be a link at the video description that you can just go and access the my GitHub account, and you can fork the project in your GitHub account, and then you can access it, or you just copy it and use it, or customize it to match your own custom project requirement. Okay. So once we define the dictionaries, now is to define the actual email address that we want to send the email to. So it's also going to be wrapped in another curly brace. So this is the email address for our recipient. Address, just like that. Then we can define new dictionary of type string object. Just like that. So here is where now the email, the actual address goes. So address, be my personal Gmail account, gmail.com. Just like that. Simple as that. So if we can just try to minimize here, we see what we have. There we go. It's not even that huge, but you can see. So something else that you might need to also understand is the reason as to why you can see we have progressive dictionaries objects within our code is because that's how the resource is defined within Microsoft Graph API. So in Microsoft Graph API, we have to be able to get the address that you need to send the email to, you have to go through this route. So there is two recipients, and then two recipient is also opens to an email address, and then we have address, and from addresses then where we're going to define the actual email address for our recipient. So that's how the resource is represented in Microsoft Graph API. Okay. So once we have the our recipient defined, I can just try to see what we have. Recipient, I just needed it to look clean. So something else that we need to do is that when we send the email, we need to also the message, we need it to remain in our send items folder. So we need to store that email that we have sent in our send items folder within our account. So here we need to store that email here as well, so that we have a record on what we have sent. So to do that, we need to, where we have a variable message. Let's see, just below here, I believe, supposed to be below this one, where we have, where we are sent, where the message you're defining it. So just below this curly brace here. So here's where we need to define that, and to just retain that message that you have sent, to save it in our send items folder. The way we do that is just type in save to send, save to send items. Okay, just like that, and then you can put it to true. Yeah, so save to send items, set it to true. Just below that curly brace where we are defining the actual message or email detail. Okay, so once we define the message, the next thing will be to now move next, which is to now create the logic to send the email. Okay, so we already have done, so we have done the access token, we have done also the endpoint to send the email, and also the account that you're going to use to send the email from, and also the email message. So the next is now to create a code, or to just to create a code that now will do the magic for sending. So what we need to do is the first thing is to create an HTTP content object that, which is also will be in a JSON format to send the email. So the first thing, you need to define this variable. We call it JSON message. JSON message. Then we're going to pass in JSON serializer. It's supposed to be JSON serializer like that, and then dot serialize. Pass in the message. So this message is here, the variable that now the whole object of our message. So we're going to pass it in there. Don't forget to add the semicolon. Next is to now create the var for content. So this one will define the type of the contents that we are making through Microsoft Graph API, like the content type of our message. So the content going to be new, and then string content like that. Pass in our JSON message there, the one that we have just defined. It's going to be UTF. This is now encoding. So UTF is supposed to be UTF only. Just look at it. It's supposed to be encoding dot UTF-8. It's supposed to be an application slash JSON. So at the semicolon. So that one looks okay. Next is now we make the post request now to the Graph API itself. So the post request itself now will be var create a request. So var request, call it new, supposed to be HTTP HTTP request message, HTTP message, that one. So automatically, the way you see this code, like doing the auto population. So when you're starting your project, your .NET framework project, it will, the VS Code automatically, it will ask you to download the .NET extensions. So there are some couple of extensions that automatically it will ask you to install it for. So you need to install the C#, and you'll be able to see this HTTP request message come automatically for you. So when you start typing it, it will just appear there if you understand what the function or the class is doing. So HTTP request message accepts HTTP method, which in our case is post. Next is now we need to send email. So here we're going to pass in the variable that is hosting endpoint, or the endpoint that is sending the email. So this one, so we can just copy the way it is there. So that is our request. So we do a post request through that URL or endpoint. This one need to be in a semicolon as well. Next, we need to now do the permission. We need to send the request with permission. So it's going to be request headers, passing in the access token now, authorization, authentication header value. So it's supposed to be authentication header value. This one accepts bearer. And then now the access token, like that. Put semicolon in that error. Next is now to get now the content. So request. So we need this. We need to also send with the type of our content. So it's going to request dot content, which is equals to content there. Just like that. So already, if I can just add a comment there, just to know what you're doing. So this is the post. Post request and the email. That's how we do it. So now we can send the email itself. We're going to call HTTP and response message again. The response message. We're going to define a new variable, which is now send mail response. Send mail response. So we need to await this one, and then now our HTTP client there, we call it dot send async request semicolon. So then async, I think everything looks okay there. Know where the error is coming from. So next is string send mail response. Void send mail response content to say await also. Send mail, send mail response, variable there at the top, dot a string async. Okay, I'm still getting an error here. Suggestion, where it is coming from this one. HTTP response, send mail response, send mail response. It's not supposed to throw an error. Send mail response dot content dot reader string. So I think here we have an issue. Let me see what issue. Okay, so what I'll do, I'll just ignore this one and then move next to see what will happen. So let's verify. So this one will just verify if the message goes successfully or not. So if send mail response that is says status code console, just wait, status console right email send successfully. So if the email goes successfully without a problem, we'll get that printed. So is success status code. So client, this one, just think there's something I'm missing out. HTTP. Oh, sorry. So it's not supposed to be request. So we have a request here. So this one's, since we are reading whatever we have done already the post, so we need to get a response. So it's supposed to be response. So that is why I was a little bit, yeah, it's supposed to be response message like that. So we have already made the request. So the next is to get the response of our request and read it. So to be able to read and get the code. So if it returns successfully, the email goes successfully, we'll get email sent successfully printed in our console. And if the email is not sent successfully, we need to do an else block there and add in console, also the write line, which is supposed to say failed to send the email. Yeah. Then you complete that with the semicolon. And that is done, guys. So We just have something here which is a warning, but it's not a big deal. So if we can just go and say wrap call chain, wrap and align call chain. So we can just ignore this one since it's a warning, it's not an error. And there we can see the code is there. So that's how you do the post request to the Graph API to be able to send the email. The same concept that you see, or the principle that you see when we're doing the sending the email, which is a post request, applies to any other custom thing that you might need to achieve using Graph API that requires post request. For example, if you want to edit, is it edit an email? Oh, sorry. If you want to upload a file in SharePoint, if you want to upload a file in OneDrive, you will use post. And that's how you can do the request. So next, guys, is just to run our code and see if that's what we have already done, or we get an error. So it's supposed to be .NET and then run. So give it some time. And boom, guys, you can see we have email send successfully. So next is to verify if you have received the email. So you're supposed to receive hello, this is a successful. So the time is 15:16 here. So I can just go to my Gmail account. Just open a new tab, open my personal Gmail account. Sorry, so supposed to my Gmail account. Just close that one. So there guys, we have it. So the email there, that's at 3:15. So we sent it to 3:15. So just 1 minute ago, 0 minute ago. So hello, this is a successful message sent by Microsoft Graph API with the .NET framework. And the subject is test email using Graph API, just the way we defined it in our code. And that's how, guys, we can do it. So if you want to send another email with a different subject message, or if you want to, I can just, hello, this is a successful message. You can say message 2. I can just edit subject 2, and I can send the email again. .NET run. You see their email sent successfully. We go to the account, we refresh, another email there. So you can see 0 minutes. So hello, this is from message 2, subject 2. So that's how, guys, this thing is very simple, how you can interact with Microsoft Graph API using .NET framework or C#. So if you have any questions, or you might need to maybe point out something that was not clear within this tutorial, you can just put it in the comments below and I will answer you guys. So there is more that is coming within Microsoft Graph API, and that is I will create a video just to show you how you can interact with OneDrive using Microsoft Graph API, and that is now using Python, using also PowerShell. So we will be just concentrating on those programming languages that are supported with the Microsoft Graph API. Something else that I haven't done yet is how we can get access tokens, how we can interact with Microsoft Graph API using Java, which is also supported. And also I have a little bit of experience using Java. So there will be a video that will come to show you how you can interact with Graph API with Java, and also more to come using Python, more to come using PowerShell, and focusing on interacting with Microsoft Graph API, emails, SharePoint, OneDrive, name it. So that is for today, guys. So do like, do subscribe for more to come. Thank you for watching. Bye bye.